Good morning, class. Good morning, students. Uh, Welcome you all in this class of income from house property. So, a very good morning, namaskar, suprabhat, etc. So, as I believe that you must be studying very hard to achieve your goal, that is to become a chartered accountant as soon as possible. Today, we will be discussing the revision part of income from house property chapter. So, in last revision class, we have discussed the provision regarding the salary topic, which was a gigantic topic and, of course, very important for the examination. So, in this case, also, income from house property as well as is a very important topic. But the good part is it's not that huge. But that does not mean that that is not important. In my opinion, in every examination, in every attempt, this income from house property question always going to be asked in the examination, whether for 6 marks or 4 marks, etc. It depends. So the good part is that you can technically attempt this question and you can score full marks in this question because this format of this head of income is very compact, very simple provisions. You have to find out the gross annual value as our step one. Then we have to find out the annual value. And then we, after deduction of some deductions under section 624, we can arrive at our income from house property. So in my opinion, out of those 5 heads of income, the income from house property is the easiest head of income and in which you can claim full marks. And I am not joking, it's serious. You can claim if there's a question is 8 marks out from income from house property topic, you can claim full 8 marks or five. If it is 5 marks, you can claim full marks in that. But you have to follow some steps. You have to follow the format, the provisions, which is very easy practically and as well as theoretically also. So let's get started. Before starting the class, we have to go through the format, and that is from your study material. And as I always say, I believe that you must have downloaded the notes. You have gone through the previous lectures, which was in detail, in which we have discussed all the provision of income from house property with example, as well as the test your knowledge question, all the illustration, etc. So if you have gone through all the previous lectures, then this topic, this chapter is really easy to understand, and the revision part is also very easy. Before going through the specific MCQs and specific question, what we have prepared for you, like we are going to discuss the MCQs, we are going to discuss the RTP question, we are going to discuss the mock test question. So that will be discussed later. Before that, I just need to go through with the specific provision, the basic format in which we have to see what exactly or how exactly we need to calculate the income from house property. So to calculate the income under the head income from house property, first of all, we have to find out the GAV, and that is only in those cases in which property has been let out. So if the property is not let out, then we do not need to calculate the gross annual value. So you can see if there is a house, if we have a house property, then from a house, you can see we can have two kinds of direct income from any building or land appertaining thereto, in which we call in this head is house. So if there is a house property, we can earn income with direct mode with two cases. If we let out this property, then you can earn rental income. Clear? So if we have a house property and if we are going to let it out, then we could earn rental income. Or we can earn, if we can sold it, then we can earn capital gain income. So the difference between these two income, Lisa, please, okay, let me use the other whiteboard because I guess this is not students are able to use that. Just a second. This will be better. Okay. So under income from house property, if we have a house or a building, we can earn two modes of direct income. One that I have just discussed, if we're going to let it out, then whatever is the rental income, but whether it is for full year or a part of the year, that is going to be taxable under the head income from house property. So you might think if we are not going to let it out, if it is vacant or self-occupied, then what? Of course, if it is vacant or self-occupied also, even then the treatment will be under the income from house property head. But if we are going to sell it, if we are going to transfer it, if we are going to transfer the title of it, so if we are going to sell it, then the one-time income, whatever the profit we will arise on that sale of property, that will be taxable under the head capital gain, charging under section 45. Clear? House property charging section 22. So directly we can earn two kinds of income from a house property, that is a rental income, and under the head income from house property, we are going to discuss only this kind of income. Indirectly, we can also earn certain incomes with the help of a house property like a business. If we are running a business in a building, so in that building, we can use that building as a factory or a godown or an office, etc. So in that case, we are earning income from sale of any stock or any goods or whether providing any services. In that case, the building, the godown, the factory, the office technically help us in an indirect mode. So that is not a direct income from that building. That is going to help it like an asset in our business. So under income from house property, which kind of provision we are going to discuss? That is in those cases when there is a building or there's a house property which we are going to let out or it's self-occupied or vacant, then that income is going to be taxable under the head income from house property. Clear? Now the second thing, how to calculate. Look, as I have discussed with you that income from house property is the easiest chapter, but does not mean is easy. It's easiest among, we can say, salary, PGBP or capital gain out of comparison to these provision, or we can say income from other sources also. But you have to solve this question very, very going to focus on the provision of the question because it's easy, but it's tricky questions. There are some points which you have to understand when you solve a question. First of all, again, that section 115 BAC applicability. You have to read the full question. You have to see what exactly the examiner demands. Whether he's asking you to solve this question as per section 115 BAC, that means default tax regime or otherwise with an optional tax regime. Because if it is going to be solved as per section 115 BAC, then there are certain provision which needs to give extra importance. Like if the house property is self-occupied, then you cannot claim interest deduction under section 115 BAC. You cannot claim any deduction which is related to any head of income. And in case of income from house property, we have section 80EE, etc. You cannot claim this deduction also if you are applying section 115 BAC. So it's very important that before solving a question of income from house property, or in my opinion, any question of any head of income, first of all, you have to read the question completely and you have to see that whether it's going to be solved as per the provision of section 115 BAC or not, or it might be going to ask that you have to solve the question both ways. So first of all, the first step, you have to read it and you have to read it and you have to see that whether section 115 BAC is applicable or not. Clear? Second, two house properties which is owned by the assessee for self-occupied purpose or vacant, that annual value will be nil. So you have to again see that if there are three house property, out of which two is self-occupied and one is let out, then the annual value of two self-occupied properties is going to be nil. So if there is a question in mind, because there is technically annual value of two self-occupied property or vacant is only nil. So if someone or any assessee is having only one house property, and that is let out for 50,000 rupees per month. So in that case, that is not going to be nil because there is a real income. So if their property is self-occupied or vacant, only in that scenario, two house properties annual value will be taken as nil. But even if you have only one house property, if it is let out for any amount for any period of time, then you have to calculate income for the purpose of that. And for that, we need to first calculate the GAV, that is gross annual value. Clear? The other important point before solving a question, the loss provision. If you have loss under the head house property, then you cannot set off more than 2 lakh rupees loss from any other head of income. So that is going to be discussed in carry forward and set off of losses provision. For the time being, I'm just going to discuss with you a little bit of that. So losses under the head income from house property can be set off without any limit earlier. But from last some years, the income tax has made a restriction and it says you cannot set off more than 2 lakh rupees loss under the head of income from house property from any other head of income. So that is a restriction. You have to think about it. And a very important question, very important point. In case of self-occupied property, because the annual value is nil, clear? Because the annual value is nil, so there were two deductions. One is for standard or statute deduction, 30%, that is not going to be used because automatically it is of 30% of annual value. And if the annual value is nil, that means the deduction is also nil. But you can claim the interest deduction. And the calculation of interest is the very technical part under income from house property and very important also. So for interest purpose, we have pre-construction period interest provision. You must have seen the previous lectures in which we have discussed in detail what is the meaning of pre-construction period, how to calculate the pre-construction period interest. Clear? So whatever is your pre-construction period interest, out of that 1/5 of that interest we can claim. And one is current year interest. So the calculation of current year interest and PPI interest is not a problem. The problem is this, that in case of self-occupied property, this interest deduction can be maximum 30,000. 30,000 or actual interest, whichever is lower. Or in certain case, it can be exceed up to rupees 2 lakh or actual interest, whichever is lower. So when you are solving an income from house property question, you have to give specific attention to this interest provision. Because in case of self-occupied, the interest can be 30,000 or 2 lakh rupees if you are going to satisfy two certain conditions. Then it will be increased to this value. Otherwise, it will remain only 30,000. The conditions are like you have to take the loan from on or after 1st April 99 and remember this is and both conditions should be satisfied to claim 2 lakh rupees limit for the purpose of interest. So the loan must be taken on or after 1st April 1999 and the construction of the property must have been completed within 5 years from the end of the financial year in which loan has been taken. Within 5 years from the end of the financial year in which loan has been taken. So if these two conditions has been satisfied, the limit of 30,000 will be replaced by 2 lakh rupees or actual, whichever is lower. But again, one more important thing in the interest provision. This 2 lakh rupees or actual, whichever is lower, is the aggregate amount. Like you have two self-occupied properties can be nil, two house property value can be nil, but the interest will be considered for aggregate of two house property. It is not 2 lakh rupees for each self-occupied. It is an aggregate. So suppose you have two self-occupied properties. From first self-occupied property, interest calculation has been 1,20,000, and for other in house property it was 1 lakh. So you cannot claim 2,20,000 rupees as interest. You can only claim maximum 2 lakh rupees. And if these condition, specific condition which we have discussed, does not complete or comply, then this 2 lakh will be maximum up to 30,000 rupees. And this interest deduction in case of self-occupied is only for the purpose of construction or purchase of property. So if the loan has been taken for repair, interest, renovation of the property, then the maximum interest only you can claim 30,000 rupees. So you might not get confused in examination. You have to pay very specific attention to the interest details which have been given in the question. That if it is for repair, etc., the limit will be remain 30,000, cannot be increased. Maximum 30,000. And if the loan has been taken for the purpose of construction or purchase, then the limit can be vary from 30,000 up to 2 lakh rupees in aggregate for both self-occupied property. There is no as such restriction in case of let out properties. This 30,000 and 2 lakh rupees problem is existing only in case of self-occupied property, but it does not applicable in case of properties if they are let out. Clear? So you have to be very, very careful when you calculate the interest part. And when you are technically, not even calculation of interest is important. How much interest is going to be allowed in the specific case? That is the very, very, very important point. And in maximum case, student get confused or claim the wrong interest. We have also deduction in case of income from house property interest under section 80EE. That will be discussed in deduction revision class. So that is also applicable in interest case of income from house property. So moving on further, if we are able to calculate the GAV correctly, then the other part is municipal taxes, and that is paid. Again, this is a very important part, paid. Only those municipal taxes which has been paid by the owner, that is going to be deducted. It must be paid and paid by the owner. Whether it is related to previous year or whether it is going to be related with the future, these need to be deducted. All the municipal taxes paid by the owner. The next thing.
Ankit ji, I had some view.
Yes, sir, please.
Certain income from house properties are completely exempt.
Yes.
So which are those?
If that is from a trust, sir, etc., and because the study material, the different heads deal with that. So if there's an agricultural property, rental income, if they are solving the farmhouse categories, like if the property is in rural area, then if it is used for agricultural purpose, used by cultivator, in that scenario, those rental income is also exempted. If we are running a political party, in that situation, the rental income from a political party is also exempt. Again, the two self-occupied properties, technically, because the annual value is nil, so that is also exempted. So those are also income which is exempted under the income from house property for various category of person.
My desire is if we can make a list of all the sections, subsections under section 10, the understanding will be far better.
So there was a chapter number 3 earlier, in which we were discussing section 10, which was exempted income. But because in the new syllabus that has been replaced, so that chapter has been actually modified. So the income which is related to other exempted head has been transferred to the specific heads of income, like the salary income, the agriculture income topic was now is transferred to some other head also. So we had earlier we had a chapter number 3, that is computation of exempted income provision. That has been actually, sir, modified. Now it is not in the new syllabus.
My request will be that we should refer the Income Tax Act 1961. And those chapters or parts, those are more relevant than our chapter numbers. Anyway, it is a suggestion.
Yes, sir,
The
definitely.
module is not a Bible.
Yes, sir.
Currently, the impression is that module is a Bible. Module is a commentary to assist us the subject. And all other materials should be read together to have a mastery. So first, we as a faculty should understand that both LVC and BOS, and then students will understand this.
Yes, sir.
I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, class. So we were discussing the GAV, and after that, the municipal tax is paid. So after paying the municipal tax, we will arrive this value. And now we have to deduct two specific deduction. We are discussing the format in short. We will discuss that format one by one with the study material format after this. And then we have standard deduction, that is 30%. Earlier, there was deductions like repair, etc. You have done insurance for the property, taxes paid by for the purpose of property, etc. Multiple deduction was there earlier. That means I was talking about like 10 or 15 years back. That was very complicated and messy. But the Income Tax Act has been amended that, and now they introduce the specific fixed deduction of 30%. So if there is an annual value, then we can claim 30% deduction even if we have done some expenditure for the repair of property or not. Whether it's more than 30%, less than 30%, does not matter. We need to claim fixed 30% of this annual value. So we are going to deduct it. And then the second part is interest, that PPI we discuss, and the other part also. So that interest part also need to be deducted, and after that we will have our income from house property. So you can see the first very important part to solve a income from house property question is to calculate the GAV correctly. The GAV calculation we have discussed in detail also in the regular class. Let me explain you in short also. The GAV will be calculated as follows. First of all, we have to take the municipal value which has been given, which will be given in the question. Municipal value. And the other thing is fair rent, that will also be given in the question. Municipal value what? Municipal value, technically the rental value of any property as per the municipality rules. If there is a building, so as per your municipality, they'll decide that what technically the rental value should be for the purpose of that building. Fair rent is the what is the current market rent of that property, and that can be different. The market value or the municipal value of any property, that could be different or that can be similar also. Those both will be given in the question. So whichever is higher, that has to be taken first. Then this higher value need to be compared to the standard rent. That is also a rental value of the property as per Standard Rent Control Act 1860, I guess. So that is also a rental value as per Rent Control Act 1860, which says that out of these two rental value, whichever is lower, that has to be taken, and it is called expected rent. If in certain question, in any MCQ or any question, if the examiner or the question asked, calculate expected rent, that means we have to calculate this, and this is going to be my answer. That is called expected rent. The lower of that above value, whatever we have taken as a higher, or standard rent out of these lower value will be called expected rent. Next, this lower value need to be, or expected rent need to be compared with the ARR. We called it actual rent receipt. Whatever actually we have received. Is it necessary? Suppose if the fair rent of a property is 50,000 rupees per month, 50,000 rupees per month, the fair market rental value of property is 50,000. So is it necessary that when I'm going to let it out practically, so it's going to be let out exactly at 50,000 per month? It might be, but it's not necessary. It could be less than 50,000. It could be higher than 50,000. Why? Because suppose I'm in hurry. I have to let it property within a week because I am going out of the station. I am going out of country for some time. So I decided that I have to let it out this property, or I am need in some cash requirement or money requirement. So in that situation, because you actually want to let it out as soon as possible, so you might need to let it out less than the market rate because the demand is high, or vice versa. If somebody needs a house property for its business as soon as possible because he need to start a business, he need to take a office, he need to start a godown, etc. So if he is actually need a property in hurry, then it might he's ready to pay you more than 50,000, which is the market value. So that could be same, but in practical life that might be different. So whatever will be this out of this higher, that will technically our GAV in normal case. Clear? So if you are able to calculate the GAV correctly, so that will be your gross annual value. Then the municipal taxes paid, as I told you, whatever is the municipal taxes paid in this year, it should be paid, not due. The municipal tax is paid in this year and it is paid by the owner. That is going to be deducted. Then our annual value, we have to deduct the 30% that is fixed, and then the interest, that is pre-construction period interest, 1/5 part, and the current year interest. If there any current year interest, then we have to deduct it. So whatever those deduction, after that we will have our income from house property. So let's see the format as our study material has been given. You can see that first of all, we have to computation of GAV, that is compute ER, higher of municipal value, and FR, but restricted to standard rent. So that is the short form what we have discussed. Like this, what exactly step 1 says? Step 1 says that higher of municipal value and fair rent. So that means we can write it like this: municipal value, fair rent, whichever is higher. Okay. But restricted to standard rent. So that means this higher value cannot exceed the standard rent. So in a format, if we can write it, we can understand it in this way, that the higher should be compared to standard rent and it cannot exceed standard rent. So that means the lower we need to take. Clear? That is called expected rent. As I've discussed, what we call it expected rent. Then step 2 says we need to compare that actual rent received or receivable, and whatever or whichever is higher out of these two, actual rent received, that will be called our GAV. We have multiple cases under income from house property, like if we have self-occupied property, if we have a let out property for full year, if we have a let out property and unrealized rent also there, if we have a let out property and vacancy is there, if part of the year property is let out and part of the year of property is self-occupied. If you have multiple houses, more than 2 or 3 houses, some are let out, some are self-occupied, some are having used for business, some are having let out and vacancy, some are having let out and unrealized rent also. So there are multiple cases. We have discussed all the multiple cases, each and everything with the help of an example in the previous lectures. Okay. So now moving on to, after GAV, we have to find out the municipal tax. That is, two conditions should be fulfilled: paid and the owner. In the examination, generally student can do this error that they deduct the full municipal tax. Suppose in question it has been written that the municipal tax is 50,000, out of which owner paid 40,000. So we need to deduct only 40,000. Suppose in that case, the specific information says out of which paid 40,000, out of which 35,000 paid by owner and 5,000 paid by tenant. In that case, we can claim only 35,000. If the question says that the municipal taxes was 50,000 for current year, 10,000 for preceding year, and 5,000 for future years, all have been paid by owner. So it does not matter that the municipal taxes paid belongs to the preceding year or the future year. If it has been paid in the current year or previous year, 23-24, we can claim all of these. So we can claim 65,000 as a deduction if it is paid by owner. Clear? The other important thing, any other taxes except municipal taxes, if it has been given in question, you have to ignore it. The important thing is, if the question says that the municipal taxes has been paid 10%, that's it. It is not giving you the specific amount. It just says that it has been paid 10%. So remember, student, always if the percentage has been given, you need to apply this percentage on the municipal value only. So if it has not been specifically said that what the percentage belongs to which value, then automatically always it's a fixed rule. You have to take this percentage on municipal value. So the municipal value has been given in question 2,50,000. Then that means municipal taxes paid is 25,000. That is 10% of the municipal value. Clear? Then we will have our NAV or AV, we can say that. And out of that NAV, etc., we will deduct 30%. Interest on borrowed capital, which we were discussing like pre-construction period interest, 1/5 part or 20%, and current year interest, we can deduct. Actual without any ceiling. There is no limit because we are discussing the case of let out property. The 30,000 and 2 lakh rupees specific limit or maximum limit is applicable only in case of self-occupied property. Okay. Then after deducting, we will have arrived at our value, which is income from house property. A very interesting point. Suppose this happened. Suppose you have a GAV. This has not been discussed in the normal class, I guess. It's a tricky thing. Suppose the GAV is 1 lakh rupees. Okay. Now, municipal taxes paid for including future year also. Municipal taxes paid by owner, including for future years, is 1,20,000. Clear? So now technically your NAV will be negative. So if we are going to take 30%, so do we need to take this 30% as nil, or we need to take the 30% of negative 20,000 as 6,000? Suppose it happens. It's a very rare case. Generally does not happen because your municipal taxes generally does not exceed the GAV. But suppose somebody has the due municipal taxes of last 15 years, or he needs to pay the next 15 years municipal taxes in advance. So government says, yes, you can pay it. And income tax also says, yes, we will allow it if it is paid. So after that, now we have a negative NAV. So if we discuss about that, can we claim 30% of this 20,000 negative? That means negative 6,000 as deduction, or we cannot do that. So the correct answer is we cannot do that. If that is negative, then the value of this will be always nil. It cannot be taken in the negative form. Interest can be deducted, then you can have the loss from income from house property. So that was the format we discussed. Now let us discuss the MCQs regarding this. So you will have a broader idea regarding the solution, how to solve these questions, etc. Okay. Then I will discuss the uh, calculation of GAV in different scenario, how we can calculate GAV. So those are our MCQs, and I of course believe that you must have gone through with all the previous provisions of income from house property. You must have solved the questions, the MCQs, the illustration, the test your knowledge questions beautifully drafted by the institute, the BOS. So you have to go through it and you have to solve it, because once you will solve those questions, only then you can have the confidence to solve those questions in the examination. Let me tell you, even if you learn all provision, even if you understand all the provision, you have actually learned by heart, still you cannot solve the numerical. In case of numerical topics, you cannot solve the numerical until you have practiced it to solve it. Because if you have learned those provision theoretically only and you did not practice well, when I'm saying you have not practiced it, does not mean that you only need to solve one question for practice. No, you have to practice multiple questions. Like if you are going to understand the provision of interest for PPI, etc., then you have to solve PPI questions multiple, 5 or 6 questions of interest, then the GAV, then the etc. question. So in the study material, you must have gone through that the multiple illustration for every topic, there is a illustration. Then test your knowledge question. Then institute is issuing mock test paper. Then RTP, etc. That is for just for to practice. So please solve all those questions, because in examination, of course, the question which is going to be asked will be only in those kind of question which has been given in the illustration, etc. So you have to practice it. It does not matter that you solve a question in the examination, but it also matters how much time you take to solve the question. That is very important. There are two students who have same knowledge, who have exactly same knowledge, and those two students solve a question of 10 marks in the examination, but correctly. But the problem is, the student who have already gone through practice multiple question will be able to solve that 10 marks question might be in 15 minutes. And the other who know the provision, who did not do that much practice, is able to solve the question in the examination exactly correctly. But if he took 20 minutes for that question, so that means that is a loss, because he might not be able to attempt the full paper because he did not practice it the question. So he might able to solve it correctly, but he will take more time, and time is money. And why time is money? Because the more time you will take, that more time you will take to be a chartered accountant. So you will be late to become a chartered accountant, and of course that is a loss, monetary as well as and in every way. So practice makes what? Practice make you to solve a question as well as solve that question in a shorter time. So that's a difference between those two students category. Ones who did not practice, able to solve. Ones who practiced, able to solve, but taking a longer time. Ones who have practiced it, solve it, and takes a shorter time. So who is going to be a CA soon? The first one, of course. So you need to be that first one. So please practice those questions. And I have told you the technique also, that how you can practice it. You need not to solve 100 questions every time. I have told you in the last revision class, then you have to tick or mark those questions. Those are important, and practice only those questions. Like out of this 10 questions, 2 or 3 questions like this, in which we have all the provision in a single question, huge questions. So if you practice only those 3 questions, that means you are able to solve all the points related to the topic. So please do that. Okay. So now we are solving those questions one by one. That will help you to understand the provision more easily. So first one is, the construction of a house was completed on 31st January 2024. The owner of the house took a loan of 20 lakh rupees at 6% per annum on 1st June 2023. In this case, the deduction allowable for the previous year 23-24 towards interest on borrowing. So they are asking you to calculate the current year interest. So the calculation of current year interest, the current year interest loan has been taken from 1st June 2023. So we need to calculate from June till 31st March 24. So that means 10 months calculation we just need to do. It's simple mathematical question. Like interest calculation is not the part of income tax. We are not going to teach you how to calculate interest. We can only tell you what is the pre-construction period. And for that period, you need to calculate the pre-construction period interest. And how you need to calculate the interest, that is not a part of income tax. That we already knew in the previous classes like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whenever it was. So you know how to calculate interest. You need the principal amount, you need the rate of interest, you need the time duration. All have been given in the question. So you need to apply that and you will able to calculate the interest. So never think that interest need to be make you understand in the income from house property chapter. No, we are going to tell you what is PPI, what is current year, and for that time duration we need to calculate the interest as per the normal mathematics. There is nothing difficult. So for 10-month interest we have 20 lakh rupees, of course, 6% rate of interest for 10 months. That will be 1 lakh rupees. So correct answer will be B. Okay. So interest will be taken for the previous year, not till the time the house was completed. House completed, just to calculate the interest, that we need to calculate the interest only in the year in which house is completed. So because it has been completed in our previous year 23-24, but the interest will be calculated for the time duration the loan has been due upon us. So because the loan has been taken on 1st June 2023, and the loan is running up to 31st March 24. It is still outstanding. And the house property has been construction between January 31st, 24. But the loan calculation will be from June till March always. Okay. Second question. M took a loan of 6 lakh on 1st April 2021 from a bank for construction of a house. Okay. The loan carries an interest at the rate 10%. The construction is completed on 30th June 2023. The entire loan is outstanding. The pre-construction period interest, you need to calculate what's going to be the pre-construction period interest. Now, the pre-construction period interest, before that, we need to find out what is the pre-construction period. So pre-construction period, we have explained it in detail in the previous lecture. For time being, the pre-construction period starts from the date we take the loan. So loan taken date. Just follow this formula and you will never going to solve it wrong. You have to follow the provision, follow the rules. Loan taken on, and that is loan taken on 1st April 2021. And it will be end on earlier of the following date. That is 31st March before construction complete. So the construction complete on 30th June 23. So from this date, what is the earlier 31st March? So if the date of construction is 30th June 23, that means the earlier 31st March will be 31st March 2023. Before June, when the March has been came, it is came on 31st March 2023 or loan repay date. So the question says loan is outstanding. So there is no loan repay date, whichever is earlier. So there is no loan repay date. So we need to take this date only. So the time duration is from 1st April 21 till 31st March 23. So this is going to teach you under income from house property that this is called pre-construction period. now we know the time duration. So now the interest calculation is the mathematical part. You have the calculator, you can solve it. Loan amount has been given, that is 6 lakh rupees for 10% and for 2 years. How much it will be? 1,20,000. The correct answer is D. Under income from house property, this is the total pre-construction period interest, but we will claim 1/5 in case of when we are going to solve a previous year question, then we have to take 1/5 of 1,20,000 as an interest deduction. Clear? Next is M took a loan of 8 lakh on 1st April. Why I am repeatedly solving the interest provision? Because I personally believe under income from house property, only two things need to be solved correctly. One is gross annual value. If you are going to take the wrong gross annual value, there will be 0 marks in the solution, because this is the first step, and if the GAV is wrong, your annual value is wrong, your income from house property is wrong, technically. Okay. So the first important thing is to calculate the GAV correctly. And the other calculation part is only the interest. Why? Because other two things is just municipal taxes paid by the owner, which will be given in the question, and 30% fixed deduction. So in case of income from house property, please pay attention, please focus when you calculate the GAV and to calculate the interest. So that's why I'm repeating, that's called practice, that you have to practice to calculate the interest, etc. Now question 3 takes Miss M took a loan of 8 lakh, 1,422 from a bank for construction of house. The loan carries 12% per annum. Okay. The construction is completed on 31st March 23. The entire loan is outstanding. The pre-construction period interest will be. Again, the same format, the same formula you need to follow. Loan taken date, that is 1st April 2022. Loan repaid on 31st March 23. Now the provision says that whatever is the construction date is completion construction date has given, you have to take the preceding 31st March. So if the construction completed on 31st March 23, then the preceding 31st March date will be 31st March 22. Loan is not repaid yet, so that date is irrelevant. And now you can see there is no pre-construction period, because loan taken date is April and the last date is one day before the loan taken, that is 31st March 22, because we need to take 1 year before date, 31st March 23, the earlier date, the earlier 31st March from this date. So there is no date, actually, there is no time. So time is negative. So there will be no interest. The correct answer will be B. So you might get confused in examination if the examiner frame the question like this. So whenever you are going to solve it, you will think, okay, I am doing some mistake. There cannot be nil interest. There cannot be negative time duration of 1 day. So I am doing wrong. I have to take the 31st March 23. No, no students, no. The provisions has been made. We cannot apply logic in the law. We have to follow which has been given. So in that case, you can see there is no pre-construction period. Even if you try to calculate, that will be -1. So that is not possible technically. So that is a nil case. So if there is no pre-construction period, there cannot be pre-construction period interest as well. Okay, next. Look, somebody is asking, sir, can you please explain example number 3 again? Please, you can scroll the video back and you can see it again. I can just tell you one thing. In this question, the loan taken date is 1st April 22. The provision of pre-construction provision says the loan, whenever the construction of property has been completed, we have to take the preceding 31st March of from that date. So because construction has been completed on 31st March 23. So what is the preceding 31st March? अगर 31 मार्च 23 को कंस्ट्रक्शन कंप्लीट हो गया है, तो मैं पूछता हूं इससे पहले 31 मार्च कब आई होगी? कब आएगी? 31 मार्च 22 में आई होगी. So because now the first date we have taken is 1st April 22. and the pre-construction end date is coming 31st March 22. So that is 1st April से पहले का एक दिन आ रहा है. So there is no pre-construction period. That is -1. 1st April 22 पहले आएगी या 31st March 22 पहले आएगी? March 22. So there is no days actually over here. So we cannot calculate the pre-construction period interest. Okay. Next. Now, fourth point. M took a loan of 6 lakh on 1/4/2021 from a bank for construction of the house. The loan carries an interest of 12% per annum. The construction is completed on 31st March 24. Now you can see in this question, construction has been completed on 31st March 24. So now we have to take the date is 31st March 23. We have to take the preceding 31st March. It does not matter whether there is negative days coming or etc. If there's negative, then we cannot calculate the interest. So now you can see in this question, the loan taken date is 1st April 2021. Entire loan is outstanding. So no repayment has been done. We have to take the 31st March preceding the completion date. That will be 31st March 23. So in this question, you can see now we have 2 years. So you have to calculate the interest for 2 years. The loan amount has been given, the rate of interest has been given, and the time duration has been given. To calculate the interest in any case, we just need to know the 3 points and you can calculate any kind of interest: loan amount, interest, and time. These two are going to be given in question always. You have to find out this only, the time. And then we have a calculator. If we have a calculator, we can solve, of course, any calculation sorted. So the correct answer will be 2-year interest. That is A, that is 1,44,000 rupees. Now, expected rent, we discussed. What is the meaning of expected rent? Expected rent is equal to fair rent, municipal valuation, lower of fair rent or municipal valuation, or higher of fair rent or municipal value subjected to the maximum of standard rent. कौन सा है? D. Why? Because municipal value, fair rent, whichever is higher, we have to compare with standard rent, whichever is lower, and that is called my expected rent. Clear? Now, to calculate GAV questions we have. Sajal is the owner of a house property covered under the Rent Control Act. Okay. Municipal valuation is 2,30,000. Actual rent is 1,95,000. Fair rent is 2,45,000 and standard rent is 2,10,000. We have to find out the gross annual value. So you have to follow the format, and the format say municipal value, fair rent, whichever is higher. So municipal value is 2,30,000 and fair rent is 2,45,000. So 230. 2,40,000, whichever is higher. Then we have to calculate the standard rent, which has been given in question. Standard rent is 2,10,000, whichever is lower. And then need to compare it with the actual rent received, and that is 1,95,000. And we need to take the higher value of it. So that will be 2,10,000. So if I am going to ask what is the expected rent in this question also, our JV answer is B. But suppose I ask you what is the expected rent is this question, then the answer will be 2,10,000 is the expected rent. Clear? Next, Rohit owns a house property in Delhi, which he wants to give on rent. He seeks your help to determine the reasonable expected rent. That's why I always say, na, please read the question carefully. Now, this question only asks expected rent. What some students do, they read, okay, this is a question. Now we have to calculate the GAV. So exactly they know how to calculate the expected rent because we did not read the question properly. So might be somebody is going to calculate the full GAV and the answer of GAV is going to be present in the solution. So that will be a nonsense, of course. That's why I always say, please read the question. The first thing to solve a question is to read it completely and to understand what exactly the examiner asks. If he asking for expected rent, you need not to calculate the GAV. You just stop your answer at the expected rent. That's it. That's the answer. Do not try to be over smart. That I know what is expected rent. I know what is the gross annual value. Let me solve the full question for the examiner. We are not doing BCom. Fine. ये CA है, BA नहीं है. कुछ भी लिख के नहीं आना है. So we have to calculate and exactly we have to stop our answer where the requirement ends. If the question asks calculate PPI, pre-construction period interest, then only solve pre-construction period interest. I'm not talking about the MCQs because in which you have the answer in the subjective question. Do not try to solve the current year interest if we are not asking. If they are asking only calculate the GAV, then do not try to calculate anything after GAV. Stop your answer at the GAV because we are professionals. Why a person is need to be called a professional? Professional means expert. Expert means two things. Why something happens, what is the problem, how to understand the problem, and how to exactly solve it precisely. So we have to give our answer also precisely. If my client comes to me and he asks any advice on capital gain, then what should I do? I only need to give him advice regarding the capital gain query he asked. I do not need to give him anything regarding the salary. Okay, sir, capital gain need to be solved like this. अगर वैसा होगा तो हम ऐसे करेंगे. If that happen, if the salary head is this, then we will do this. So he will think how free I am. So he will think that even if I'm not asking, I'm giving the answers what is not required. So what image he will? He will think I am very free. I do not have any work. So that's why I'm giving advices to him. And that's not the reality. We have very short of time. We have multiple tasks to do. So exactly in the same manner, your examiner is like a person who is actually not only seeing what exactly you knows, but how to represent it. So in the BCom examination, we generally do, we can write anything. This is not that. This is a professional thing. We have to very precisely giving the answers. And it's a very simple mistake generally students do. They solve the question even when that's not required. So you are doing technically two mistakes. You are actually giving those answers also which the examiner does not want. Your impression will be very bad. And you are actually killing your time. You have only 3 hours to solve the question paper. You are giving the solution which is not required. So technically you are cutting your time what you can use to solve other questions. So please remember it. What is expecting from a question? What exactly is going to be asked in a question? You have to only answer that part. So in this question, because the examiner is asking for expected rent, why do I need to calculate GAV? No, I will not do that. So the municipal value is given. The fair rent has been given, whichever is higher. So higher is 250, clear? And standard is 220. That's it, finish. Lower is expected rent. 220 is my answer. A is option, finish. Why do I need to calculate the GAV, etc.? No need, okay, no requirement. Eighth, find out the GAV. Now this question is asking for GAV, so I will solve the GAV. I will not move in a single step further than after calculation of GAV. I'm not going to calculate the municipal tax, etc. Even if it is given in the question. Do not think that if it is given in question municipal tax, then we need to solve it. No. If they're asking for GAV, stop your question, stop your solution in that part only. That will help you to save your time. And of course, there will be a good impression in the head of your examiner who's going to check your question that yes, he's in a step to become a professional. He's not doing BA is doing CA. So find out the GAV of the house property A. The following is given. So we have municipal value, fair rent, whichever is higher, that is 10,000. Then standard rent, 88,000. Sorry, it's not 10,000. 88,000. Then standard 92,000, whichever is lower, that means 88,000. Actual rent is 89,000, whichever is higher, that is 89,000. So correct answer is B. I will upload these MCQs on portal, of course. The previous notes has been already uploaded. Kindly download them. There's chart presentation also, which really going to help you in the examination to revise the provisions quickly. Next is X is owner of house. Okay, there is something in chat box. Okay, so students are giving continuous answers themselves. Good, very good. So X is owner of house which has been let out at a monthly rent of 25,000. The pay rent is 2,90,000. Standard rent is 2,60,000. Municipal value of the house is 280. And the municipal taxes are levied at 10% of the municipal value. So I've told you, if the question only till there, if it has been given the municipal tax are levied at 10%, full stop, then automatically we have to take 10% of municipal value. The entire amount of municipal taxes are outstanding for the year ended on 31st March 21. The amount of municipal taxes are to be allowed as deduction. So year end on 31st March 21, I need to change it. It should be 24. So technically the question says that we do not pay any municipal tax. Now the question is just saying the amount of municipal tax deduction you just need to tell. So if somebody is going to calculate the GAV in this question also, there is no use. You are wasting your time and you are wasting your impression also. So because municipal taxes has not been paid, so the correct answer will be D, that is nil. No deduction can be allowed. When a house property is let out throughout the year for a monthly rent of 22,000 and municipal taxes paid for current year is 24,000. And the for earlier year paid now is 16,000. The income from house property would be. Now in this question, the examiner or the question asks you to calculate full answer. So now we have to calculate the GAV. The step 1 says municipal value or fair rent. So municipal value has not been given. Even fair rent is not given. But now it's a very interesting thing. If you're going to solve your income from house property questions and if the answer is not matching, so there is a very, we can say, major issue or major mistakes which has been done by a student is this. And it says that has been given in study material also and notes in my notes also. There's a point which says that if in question actual rent is given, if in the question actual rent is given, as in this question actual rent has been given, but no fair rent has been given, then we need to calculate the fair rent by ourselves. So in this question, you can say there is no fair rent, but because the note point says that if in the question actual rent given, but no fair rent has been given, still we have to calculate the fair rent by taking the actual rent into 12. So 22,000 into 12. We need to take this as a fair rent. That will come 2,64,000. So even if fair rent is not given, but we have to calculate fair rent, and it can be called expected rent, etc., or we can call it annual rent, etc., on the basis of the actual rent given. So now we have higher value is 2,64,000. So generally what happens when the fair rent has not been given and actual rent has been given, the student does not follow this point, this point. They do not do this. They take fair rent is not given, 0. Please do not do this. You will see if you are solving a question of house property and your GAV is not correct, you're not matching with the answer, might be 80% chances due to this mistake that you are not might be taking the fair rent value even when fair rent is not given, but actual rent is given. So you have to follow this step. In this question, the answer would not be affected by this case because the higher value will be the same. But in many questions, if you do not follow this step, your answer will be wrong. Please mark this point very, very carefully. It has been given in the notes and clarification section of the notes which I have uploaded, and also in the chart and also in the study material. So 2,64,000. Now standard rent not given. Never write it down 0. If not given, do not use this 0, because in that case, if you'll take the lower, that will be 0. No. If not given, use dash always, dash. So that means because not given, then 264 will be the value lower. Do not use 0, because if you are using 0, technically it will take lower value as a 0, which is a wrong interpretation. Now ARR, actual rent, see that is again 2,64,000. So this is not affected because GAV will ultimately will come 264. If you are not even following this step, that GAV will become 264. But suppose what? Suppose in this question, there is unrealized rent of 1 month. Unrealized rent of 1 month. Then what will happen? Because fair rent is not given, but actual rent is given. And if actual rent is given, then to calculate the fair rent, the provision is fixed. That is 22,000 actual rent into 12. So that will come 264, whether it's unrealized rent exists or not, where there is vacancy or not. It does not matter. You need to take the fair rent for full year. That's technically annual rent sort. But because there is unrealized rent, if unrealized rent, then what will happen? The answer will change. 264 ARR, now we are not going to take full value. Now we will take after reducing 22,000 out of that. So that means we will take only 11 months rent. That is 242. So if there is unrealized rent, then we will take 2,42,000 as the value, and the higher will be 264. GAV will be 264. The correct GAV answer is this. Now what will happen? If there is unrealized rent and you did not follow this step, you will take fair rent as 0. You did not calculate it with the help of actual rent. Then this value will be 0, because you are not going to calculate any value. Municipal value 0, fair rent 0, standard rent 0. That means this value is dash or 0. And in that case, your GAV will be 242. And that is a wrong GAV. Your answer will be wrong. You will get no marks. So that's why it's very important, because if an examiner wants to create a tricky question, if I am the examiner and I'm going to frame a question, I'll frame like this. Because this small thing shows that how deeply you read the provision. If there is a one student who just need to know how to calculate the GAV, municipal value, fair rent, higher, lower, etc. And if he skipped this point because he did not read the provision in detail. So I will frame a question in which there will be no fair rent and there will be actual rent. And there is unrealized rent also. Because if there is no unrealized rent, then the answer will always be GAV same, whether he apply that provision or where he does not apply that provision. But if I insert the unrealized rent or I insert the standard rent, that can be changed provision. So I will definitely going to do that to understand that how deeply the provision is just being read out or the provision has been understood properly. So this point is, in my opinion, very small point, just a simple clarification, just a simple note. But in my opinion, this is the most important note or provision of income from house property. A student who knows all the provision, but if he skip that point in the solution in hurry, he thinks, okay, I will calculate GAV in short like this, and he skip that point, that means your answer will be wrong. Your GAV will be wrong. Clear? So in our question, the GAV comes 2,64,000. We were solving it. And the municipal tax is 40,000. It needs to be deducted. 224. After deducting 30%, the answer will be 156,866. The correct answer will be B. It's a very important question. You have to please, whenever you solve a question of house property, kindly if parent is not given, please give more attention to that question. That might be a tricky question for all of you. So those were the MCQs. Ritika asking where you have uploaded. I am not able to find them. There's on BOS portal. You need to use your CRO number, need to upload on the Institute BOS knowledge portal. You will find out all notes there. Okay. I cannot repeat it because you can scroll back and you can again watch it as many as time you want. Okay. So we discussed the MCQs. Now moving on to the this important note what we were talking. These are the notes which have been uploaded. So those are the provisions we discussed. What is the meaning of house property? Whether the house property is in India or outside India, exactly the same provision. The clarification we discussed. So the important clarification is very important. You have to read the clarification also with full attention. Okay. House property is the case in which you have the notional income case also applicable. If you have more than two house property, then the deemed let out provision has been initiated. Okay. Then deemed owner definition we have discussed in detail automatically. The practical provisions, the specific cases, different kinds of GAV we need to calculate under different circumstances. I will going to guide you in that after this. Pre-construction period interest provisions as well as the question. These are cases. We have technically 7 cases, what we have discussed in the chart presentation also. I'm going to show you that fair rent point, what we just have discussed. This is case C. These all notes have been uploaded with MCQ, etc. Everything. Now this clarification, you can see first point. This is the point what we were talking about in the last MCQ. If in question AR is given, AR means actual rent is given, but FR is not given. Then FR will be calculated on the basis of AR and that FR will be called as expected rent. And how we need to calculate it? AR into 12. That's a simple way to solve it. AR into 12, that will be our expected rent. So this is also have been discussed in detail in the normal sessions, which must you have gone through. Now, a different kind of GAV we need to calculate in different scenario. Again, point number 10 is very important. Interest deduction under section 24 can claim even you have actually not paid the interest, but it has only been due. I remember in one attempt, the interest from income under that income from house property that has been given, that interest has not been paid. Like municipal tax need to be paid. Municipal tax need to be paid for the purpose of claiming the deduction. But there is no requirement in respect of interest. So even if whether it's a pre-construction period interest or whether it's a current year interest, in case of house property, in case of PGBP, interest need to be paid. In only that case, you can claim it as a deduction under section 43B. But in under income from house property, because house is a basic need of every person, correct? In our country, we need basic 3 needs: roti, kapda, and makan. So the house is the basic need. So government has made the rate of interest for the purpose of housing loan is very low, provide various subsidies, etc. And even the income tax providing relaxed provision. But even if you have taken the home loan, housing loan, and you not paid any interest, even if you can claim that interest as a deduction on outstanding basis. So if the question specifically says, you might get confused if the question says interest has not been paid yet. So even you can claim that interest as a deduction under income from house property. Now the different type of GAV in different scenario. We all know that if it is a self-occupied property, or vacant property, we do not need to calculate the GAV at all because the annual value is nil. So there is no GAV concept in these cases. So if the property is let out for full year, in the notes you must have seen the D case we are talking. If the property is let out for full year and full rent receipt, we have received all year rent, or in case of deemed let out. In all these cases for GAV, we are following by that's rule. What we are discussing, municipal value, fair rent, higher, standard rent, lower, actual rent received, whichever is higher. If actual rent received is given, but fair rent is not given, you have to calculate the fair rent with the help of actual rent, that is multiplied by 12. Clear? Then E case says when property is let out for full year, but we have unrealized rent. There is some rent which has not been realized from the tenant. Again, same provision. Automatically in D case, where the full rent has been received, the AR will be for 12 months. Suppose the 10,000 is the monthly rent and full rent has been received. So we will take 1,20,000 over here. And if there is unrealized rent, suppose there is 2 months rent not being paid, those value will remain the same, only ARR will be changed. That is for now need to be taken for 10 months. Now the F case, which says the property is let out as well as vacant. So if the vacancy attached to any question, then we have to calculate the GAV as per case number F. Whether there is unrealized rent also, whether that property is self-occupied also for some time duration, does not matter. Unrealized rent is there, but you cannot solve it as per case number E. If vacancy and let out is given in some case, then you have to follow the F case, which says step 1 is same, municipal value, fair rent, higher. This higher, standard rent, lower. But now the things will change. This lower will be now compared with to annual rent, not ARR. It's annual rent. That means full 12 months rent should be taken first. We have discussed this case also in the previous lecture in detail. I'm just going to revise it. The actual rent, the annual rent, that means 12 months rent, which would have been received, needs to take. Out of this, if there is any unrealized rent value is the question, you have to deduct it. If there is any self-occupied time property has been used, that rent also been deducted. After that, the value need to be compared with this lower value. Now in this scenario, if this lower value is higher, that means suppose this is 2,50,000 and this is 2,40,000 value. So if this is higher in this and that value, that 250 will be my GAV. Suppose this is not 240, this is suppose 270. So if this value is higher, this is 270, this is 250, then this higher value will be the GAV. Now the problem is this, suppose this is 250 and this is also 250. Sorry, before that, so this higher will not be GAV yet. If this is 250 and this is 270, then this is not yet the GAV. We need to deduct vacancy time duration rent also. Suppose the property is vacant for 2 months or 1 month or 3 months. So how much time the property has been vacant, that rental value which has been included in this 270 needs to deduct. Suppose that is 40,000. So that after deducting that vacancy part rent, now that will be my GAV. Clear? Now suppose this value also comes 250. Now the both are equal. Nothing is higher. If this is higher, this will be your GAV. Nothing need to deduct it for vacancy purpose. But if this value is higher, then you need to deduct the vacancy rent also to arrive at the GAV. But suppose what if these both values are same? 250 is the lowest value coming and 250 is coming from this calculation. So if this is equal again, even then we have to take this value because that is beneficial to the assessee. Why? Because out of this 240, we can still deduct the vacancy rent of 40,000. So that will be my 210 value. So if this higher, we will take it. If this is equal, still we will take this value and we can deduct the vacancy rent out of that rental value. So F case is different in this scenario because we have to take the annual rent, we need to deduct the unrealized rent, self-occupied rent, etc. Now the G case, which says if properties for some time self-occupied and some time let out, there is no vacancy. It is either self-occupied or let out. In that case, exactly the same provision needs to be followed as per case number D and E. 12 months will be replaced by the actual rent receipt for the time duration the property was let out. All other municipal value, fair rent, etc. will be as same as in case of D and E. So those cases, of course, we have discussed these cases also in detail one by one in the previous lectures, which you have must gone through. Now, so these were the provision regarding the basic provision of income from house property. Now we will move on to solve the questions from the MTP, mock test papers, and your RTP one by one. So let me take first your RTP question. Fine. I have already taken the printout of this question. Very interesting question, very good question, of course. The institute is doing so much for you, and you just need to study. The BOS faculties, institute, everybody just want one thing, that you should clear your examination with the help of the teaching faculties has been provided, the RTP, MTP, the coordinators, they are working very hard for you. So just need to focus on your study and your future. So we are going to solve this question number 10. And the first thing before solving any question is to find out what the question is exactly asking from us. What exactly they are asking from us. So Mr. Raj, a resident in India, owns two house property, one in Delhi and another in Kanpur. Okay, so we have two properties. One is in Delhi. Two house property we have. One is in Delhi, another is in Kanpur. The property is Kanpur is self-occupied. Very good, because in that case, we need not to calculate the GAV. That will be nil. By Mr. Raj. However, the property in Delhi is let out. Okay. Throughout the year. Okay. No vacancy, etc. The particulars of Delhi house for previous year 23-24 are as under. Standard rent is 172. We are not going to solve it yet. I'm just reading the question. What you need to do in those 15 minutes, I am telling you how to utilize your 15 minutes. Whenever you read the question, mark the important things. That if I am reading, suppose this is my 15 minutes before I am going to receive the answer sheet. So, and I need to read the question. So how or what I am going to do? Suppose this is the question you are going to read. So I need to mark the important point that Raj is a resident. That is also a fact, my question. Two house property, very good. One is in Delhi, one is in Kanpur, very good. One is self-occupied, one is let out, okay. So the information which is relevant for the solution, I can mark that. It does not mean that you need to mark each and every information, but you can mark the important thing, whatever you like. Standard is given, municipal valuation, fair rent, okay, rent receipt, okay, municipal taxes paid by Mr. Raj. So I know he's the owner, he has paid it. So इसमें outstanding वाला कोई problem अब नहीं है. Municipal taxes paid by Mr. Raj on so and so. Okay, Kanpur house is 3,500 he paid. For that, 5% of municipal valuation he paid. For Kanpur house, 3,500. Okay. Raj has taken a loan. SBI से हमने loan लिया है 35 lakh at 12% per annum. Percentage sign not there. Okay. In April 2021 for purchase of Delhi house. So if you are taking a loan for the purchase of any house, understand? Purchase. There is no construction. So there cannot be pre-construction period also. Understand? Because that is pre-construction period. So if you purchased a property, a completely built up house, then where is the construction? So there is no construction involved. We just need to calculate the current year interest. So that's a good news. It will take you less time. The stamp duty value of this house was 40 lakh rupees. Why it has been given? If you are not gone through with the deduction provision here, deductions, then let me tell you, if you have a house property and it is the value of house property is less than the specific limit which has been provided, then you can claim the deduction for that interest under section 80 EE also. So you will be able to understand this concept when you will go through with the deduction provision. Okay. Mr. Raj purchased a plot. Now there the PPI can be there in May 21 and the construction of the Kanpur house was begin in June 2001. Construction started on June and complete in December 22. So there must be PPI because that's why they are providing so much of information. Mr. Raj took a loan of 25 lakh for this Kanpur property on 1st July 2021 for construction of the house. No repayment has been done so far for both the loans. So all loans are outstanding. Again, a good news. Next, there are more information. We did not get the information what we actually required. During the previous year 23-24, the Raj has earned a salary income of 18 lakh rupees. So there is salary income information also given. We have gone through the salary provision. Compute total income. Now we understand what we need to calculate of Mr. Raj for assessment year 24-25. And now you can see what they're asking. Total income, both regime. So that's need to be checked in the question initially that what they're asking. They're asking for total income under the both tax regime. That means as per section 115 BAC and also other than that. That means we need to calculate the income under default tax regime and under optional tax regime. That means when we will go for the solution, we will have default tax regime in which we have to solve Delhi house, which is let out, I guess, and a Kanpur house, which is self-occupied. Clear? And then under optional tax regime, again, we need to solve Delhi, let out, and Kanpur self-occupied. And we need to solve the total income. So with this house property, we have to add the salary head income also, which is given in question is 18 lakh. That is salary received. Deduction will be there 17.50 lakh. Deduction will be in both regime. We already know that. So salary at sorted 17 lakh 50,000 need to be added back to the income from house property, whatever we will get. So this is the question. And we will solve this question after a short break. So Nisa, can we go for a break for 10 minutes? Welcome back, everyone. I believe you must have taken your tea, coffee, etc. in this short break. Okay. We were about to discuss the provision from the question actually from the RTP. We have read that question. Now we need to solve it. Okay. There is a question. Mr. Raj, a resident in India. So, because the solution is little bit in detail, so I need to solve it on a separate page. I cannot solve it over here because we need space for that. So let's solve it over here. So as I told you, we have to solve this question under both regime, that is default tax regime as well as the optional tax regime. First of all, let's see what is the implication under default tax regime. Okay. So we have two houses, that is Delhi and one is Kanpur. The Kanpur house is self-occupied. The Delhi house is let out. So the GAV, if we calculate as per the provision, we will arrive at the GAV that will be 1,80,000. Then we have 5% municipal taxes paid, that is 10250. We will have our value 169,750. I have already solved it. 30% fixed deduction, that is standard deduction, that is 50,925. Now, because this house has been purchased for the loan of 35 lakh rupees, so there is no pre-construction period involved. So there is no PPI. There will be only current year interest, which will be 35 lakh at the rate 12%, which will come 4,20,000. Because in case of let out property, we cannot claim as much interest as we want. So total losses from this house property will be 30,1175. Because there is section 80EE also applicable, but deduction under section 80EE cannot claim out of this 4,20,000, 1,50,000 can be claimed under section 80EE. But because under default tax regime, this deduction cannot be claimed. So we claim whole interest 4,20,000 under income from house property. Now the self-occupied property case, the annual value will be nil, as we know. There is interest also, but under section 115 BAC, we cannot claim interest under self-occupied property. So this will be again nil. We have salary income of 18 lakh. After 50,000 deduction, that will come 17,50,000. And out of this 17,50,000, we can claim set off of our losses. That can be maximum 2 lakh rupees. But again, a problem. We cannot set off losses under 115 BAC. So technically, there is total income that will become 17,50,000 rupees if we opt for default tax regime. Now, if we'll move on to optional tax regime, then the let out property and the self-occupied provision will be solved like this. GAV, etc. will remain the same. That means 180. The interest part will be changed. Now the interest is 4,20,000. Out of this 150, we will claim in 80EE. So the remaining, that is 2,70,000, we can claim over here as interest. The reason behind is very interesting. Let me tell you. We could claim 420 over here also. But if we claim 4,20,000 deduction over here, then the loss will be huge. And that loss maximum can be set off up to 2 lakh rupees. But if we use this 80EE deduction, then we can claim this 1,50,000 also out of GTI and balance 270 over here. If we take 420 over here, then we cannot claim losses more than rupees 2 lakh. So that will be a problem. So that's why if the loss is exceeding 2 lakh rupees, so the interest part we can claim under section 80EA also. So we did that. So now the loss will be 1,51,000. $175. Clear? Now the self-occupied part, the value is nil, of course. And now we will calculate the PPI also over here, because there's a construction also. The PPI will become, the pre-construction period will be start from 1st July 2021 till 31st March 22. And that is 9 months. And for 9 months interest, if you will calculate, that will come 1,87,500. 1/5 of that we can claim as PPI interest, that is 37,500. And the current year interest, that is upon 25 lakh rupees loan, will come 2,50,000. But maximum under self-occupied property, we can claim a loss of maximum 2 lakh rupees. So that means total loss from income from house property will be 351,175. So if we include 4,20,000 over here, then the loss will be increased by 1,50,000 more. So that will be more than 5 lakh rupees. But we can only set off only 2 lakh rupees. So the remaining loss will be need to be carry forward. So we transfer 150 loss to deduction under section 80EA, 150 lakh rupees interest under deduction 80EA under section. So we can set off now 2 lakh rupees from our salary income, which is 17,50,000. So after that, we will have our salary, the GTI is 15,50,000. Then our deduction under section 80EA, what we were talking about is 150, and our total income will be 14 lakh rupees. So if we apply default tax regime, our income will be 17,50,000 and loss will be 3,01,175. And if we apply optional tax regime, then our TI will be 14 lakh rupees and our losses will be, out of this 351, we have set off 2 lakh rupees loss and 1,51,000 will be carry forward, etc. So that was the RTP question. Moving on to other questions. MTP question, we need to solve it. Second. This is our MTP questions, and this is question number 2A we need to discuss. Just a second, let me share it with you. So you can see question number 2A now. Mrs. C.R. D'Souza is an American, got married to Mr. Kabir of India in New York on 14th February 2023 and came to India for the first time on 18th March 23. She left for Australia. That is the information part for the purpose of her residential status, etc. The second paragraph, this is related to our income from house property concept. So we need to solve only this part. It says on 1st April 2023, she had purchased a flat in Mumbai, which was let out to Mr. Sameer on a rent of 26,000 per month from 1st June 2023. She had taken a loan from India Bank for purchase of this flat, on which bank had charged interest of 2,05,000 up to 31st March 24. So we have to solve it. The GAV, if you'll calculate, because in this question, again, remember FR is not given, but actual rent is given. So you will calculate the ER also in place of FR. But after that, the GAV will come because there is no unrealized rent. 2,60,000 will be the GAV. Then municipal tax is not given, 30% deduction for the purpose of sin deduction, that is 78,000. The balance is 1,82,000. The interest has been paid 2,05,000. Whether it's been paid or not does not matter. If the interest has been given charge or due, etc., still we can claim that. And our loss will be 23,000. Simple. It's a very simple question. 23,000 will be the loss. The second question from MTP. Is part B of question number 3. Okay, Mr. Kushal is a resident, but not ordinary resident in India during the assessment year 24-25. He furnished the following information regarding his income, etc. The question is asking you to calculate income from house property in the hands of Kushal if he has opted out of the default tax regime. That means we need to calculate the solution as per optional tax regime. So we need to solve it. So under optional tax regime, we have two property. One is New York and one is self-occupied. So self-occupied we can solve over here. So the GAV in case of New York property, if you calculate, that will come 486,000. Because we have short of time, we have to open the query session also. So I'm going to solve it in a short. Deduction for municipal taxes, whether paid in India, outside India, does not matter. I have already converted that amount into INR rupees. So 469,8000. 30% deduction of this value 140,9400. Then AV or NAV will be 328,8600 less interest. There is no interest. That is set off of loss, which we will discuss later. So that is the income from house property from the New York property, that is 32,88,600. Now talking about the self-occupied property, the annual value of course will be nil. If we calculate the PPI, so the time duration is coming 7 months. That is 1 year and 7 months, starting from 1st September 18 till 31st March 20. So that will come 1 year and 7 months. For 1 year and 7 months, if you calculate the interest, that will come 4,75,000. Out of that, 1/5 we can claim, that is 95,000. And the current year interest will be 3 lakh rupees. So total interest will be 3,95,000, but we cannot claim it. We can only claim maximum 2 lakh rupees. So this will be loss from the self-occupied property, that is 2 lakh rupees loss, which can be set off from this head of income. So this loss of 2 lakh rupees has been set off from this income. The remaining income will be the balance, that is 308,8600. That is income from house property. Clear? So I guess now we can open the query session. So students, if you have any query, you can ask. Sir, can we open the query session? Okay. Okay. So if you have any query, kindly ask.
Sir, in the last question, you told the construction period, the house is completed 1 year before, but you have taken the total year, May 2023 till you have taken. Just explain that one, sir.
This last question, what we discussed regarding the Mr. Vishal, that one?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, let me see it once again. This question, exactly are you talking?
Yeah, correct.
So you can see when we talk about the construction of the property, the pre-construction period concept says that we have to take the values or the time duration like this. Pre-construction period will be start from the date loan taken. So you can see for the self-occupied property, we have taken the loan on 1st September 2018. Clear? So that is 1st September 2018 is my starting date for the to calculate the pre-construction period, and it will end on earlier of the two of the following dates. First says 31st March preceding the date of completion of the house property. So the house property construction was complete on 31st May 2020. So if the construction has been completed on 31st May 2020, then what will be the preceding 31st March? That will be 31st March 2020 only. The loan is still outstanding, so there is no repayment date has been given in question, so that will be irrelevant for us. So you can see the time duration will be from 1st September 2018 till 31st March 2020 for the purpose of construction, for the purpose of pre-construction period interest. So that will exactly the same, that is 1 year and 7 months. So what is the issue? I guess that is the same calculation we have done.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. I have a query in question self-occupy or vacant is the two property, then I can claim interest only 2 lakh or 30,000. If two condition, if one condition is one
आप
condition is
हिंदी
the
में भी पूछ सकते हो आराम से, कोई इशू नहीं। कोई भी बच्चा अगर हिंदी में पूछना चाहता है तो वो भी आराम से, आप जिस लैंग्वेज में आप कंफर्टेबल हो, हिंदी इंग्लिश की मुझे तो आती है, इनमें से आप इसको समझ में आराम से पूछो, नो हेजिटेशन। कुछ सिर्फ इंग्लिश में बताया जाएगा ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं, आप प्रॉपर आराम से क्वेश्चन अपना हिंदी में पूछो अगर पूछना है तो। ठीक है, पूछो।
यस सर, तो जो कंडीशन है टू कंडीशन, वन कंडीशन उसमें से जो कि 5 ईयर कंप्लीट होगा, उसमें से जब लोन लेंगे टेकन लोन 5 ईयर, देन आई कैन क्लेम 2 लाख एंड नहीं तो 30 लाख
30,000 है ना,
वो 30,000। तो अर्थात हमारा लोन अगर 5 ईयर से बिफोर कंप्लीट हो रहा है तो हम 30,000 ही ओनली क्लेम करेंगे।
हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। देखो ऐसा है कि अगर लोन हमने 1 अप्रैल 1999 से पहले लिया है, ठीक है, तो हमेशा ही 30,000 है, उसमें 2 लाख आएगा ही नहीं। बट प्रैक्टिकली ऐसा केस अब होगा नहीं। बट अगर लोन आप 1 अप्रैल 1999 के बाद लेते हैं, पहली कंडीशन। दूसरी, जब भी लोन लिया है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल मान लीजिए जब भी आपने लोन लिया है, उसके 5 साल के अंदर आपके हाउस का कंस्ट्रक्शन कंप्लीट हो जाना चाहिए। अगर सपोज आपने लोन लिया है आज क्या डेट है हमारी? आज है हमारी 13 मई 2024, ठीक है। आज अगर आपने लोन लिया है तो कहते हैं 5 साल के अंदर घर का कंस्ट्रक्शन कंप्लीट कर दो। और ये काउंट कहां से होंगे? जिस ईयर लोन लिया है पहले उस साल के एंड में जाना पड़ेगा। तो तो आज अगर हम ये लोन लेते हैं तो पहले ये वाला फाइनेंशियल ईयर कब खत्म होगा हमारा? 31 मार्च 2025 में। उसके विद इन टाइम ड्यूरेशन ऐड करके उतने टाइम में आपका कंप्लीट हो जाना चाहिए। लेट मी शो यू।
तो सर अगर जो हमारा 31 मार्च 25 का कंप्लीट होगा तो 1 ईयर इस ईयर में ऐड होगा ना, 25 24 25 में 1 ईयर इसको
24-25 से स्टार्ट हो।
अच्छा नेक्स्ट ईयर से स्टार्ट काउंटिंग।
मैं आपको बताता हूँ, एक सेकंड, मैं आपको नोट्स दिखाता हूँ पहले, फिर हम उसमें डिस्कस करते हैं। बिल्कुल आराम से पूछो, कोई टेंशन नहीं। वेट, देखो, प्रोविजन हमें पहले अच्छी तरह समझने होते हैं ना। प्रोविजन अगर हमने अच्छी तरह समझ ली है तो हमें प्रैक्टिकल इंप्लीकेशन भी उसका समझ आ जाएगा। तो पहले इस वाले नोट्स को डाउनलोड कर लिया है पोर्टल से, नहीं तो इंस्टीट्यूट के उसमें भी लिखा हुआ है, कोई इशू नहीं। तो प्रोविजन देखिए ये आ गया यहाँ पर हमारे पास कि आपको अगर लोन आपका 1 अप्रैल 1999 या उसके बाद है और घर का कंस्ट्रक्शन, देखो लैंग्वेज क्या है, विद इन 5 ईयर फ्रॉम द एंड ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल ईयर इन विच द कैपिटल वॉज बोरोड। अब इसको समझो बिल्कुल सिंपल लैंग्वेज में। अब मान लीजिए आपने लोन लिया है, सपोज कर लेते हैं 1 जुलाई 2019 में, ठीक है। तो 2019 में लिया तो वो कंडीशन जो कहती है कि 1 अप्रैल 1999 के बाद होना चाहिए, वो तो फुलफिल हो गई। अब इसमें डिडक्शन सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड के केस में कब मिलेगी? जब मेरा घर विद इन 5 ईयर कंप्लीट हो जाए। और कंप्लीट कैसे चेक करते हैं? कहता है पहले इस साल के एंड में आ जाओ। 1 जुलाई 19 वाला साल कब खत्म होगा? मार्च में जाके। इसकी मार्च कब आएगी?
22
2020, ठीक है। अब इसमें 5 साल जोड़ दूं? 5 साल जोड़ देते हैं ईयर में। तो मेरा जो घर बनाने की लास्ट डेट है वो ऐसे आ गई, 31 मार्च 2025 से पहले या 25 तक घर बन गया तो मुझे मिल जाएगी 2 लाख तक की डिडक्शन इंटरेस्ट की। और अगर 25 के बाद बना, 2026 में बना मान लो भाई घर हमारा, तो हमें मिलेगी सिर्फ 30,000 की। अब क्वेश्चन कहता है कि घर बन गया मान लो 1 अक्टूबर 2023 में। हमारे एग्जाम में तो 23-24 वाले क्वेश्चन आएंगे। तो अगर 1 अक्टूबर 2023 में कहता है घर का कंस्ट्रक्शन कंप्लीट हो गया, तो 5 साल के अंदर हो गया ना, इससे पहले हो गया। तो इस वाले केस में अब मैं 2 लाख रुपए तक की इंटरेस्ट की डिडक्शन ले सकता हूं, 2 सेल्फ ऑक्यूपाइड हाउस के लिए मिलाकर। 1 है तो भी 2 लाख, 2 है तो भी 2 लाख, मैक्सिमम मिला के ले सकता हूं, चाहे वो करंट ईयर हो या वो 1/5 ऑफ पीपीआई। क्लियर? तो जिस दिन लोन लिया है पहले उस साल के एंड में पहुंच जाओ, उसके 31 मार्च पे, उसमें 5 साल जोड़ दो। अब उस डेट से पहले हो जाए तो 2 लाख, उस डेट के बाद दिखाता है क्वेश्चन तो उसमें 30,000 रुपए की इंटरेस्ट की डिडक्शन मिलेगी। ठीक है, ओके, एनीवन एल्स?
One more doubt, sir. House property loss can be set off any other head, which is can be set off only salaries or PGBP or something else.
House property loss can be set off against PGBP also, against salary also, against capital gain also. It cannot be set off against casual income.
Okay, sir.
The income from other source part, you can set off it PGBP also. It is allowed. The detail regarding the set off concept will be discussed in the set off and carry forward chapter. So there is no restriction in income from house property. The restriction is only one, that you can maximum set off 2 lakh rupees out of any other head of income. And you can set off at salary as well as PGBP as well as capital gain also. There is no restriction.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Anyone else?
सर आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन दैट कि जैसे 2 लाख की लिमिट है एसओ प्रॉपर्टी के लिए, मतलब इंटरेस्ट जो हमारा
Self occupied के लिए।
कंस्ट्रक्शन है, तो वो जो अगर हमारा प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन इंटरेस्ट है वो 3 लाख आ गया तो भी क्या हम लोग सिर्फ उसको 2 लाख के लिए 1 साल में 2 लाख कर सकते हैं?
नहीं, 1 साल में। देखिए जो प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन पीरियड इंटरेस्ट आएगा अगर वो 3 लाख आता है तो पहले तो हमें उसका 1/5 करना है 1 साल के लिए, ठीक है। तो 3 लाख का 1/5 लेंगे आप 60,000। बट आप मान लो आप कह रहे हो कि 15 लाख आ गया तो उसका फिर 1/5 आएगा 1 साल में 3 लाख। तो चाहे वो प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन इंटरेस्ट का पार्ट हो या करंट ईयर इंटरेस्ट का, मैक्सिमम आप 2 लाख 1 साल में ले सकते हैं। अब जो 3 लाख अगले साल आएगा वो आपको फिर नेक्स्ट ईयर भी मैक्सिमम 2 लाख ही मिलेगा। जो 1 लाख आपका बच गया, हर साल आपको 1/5 मिलना है। सपोज 15 लाख है आपका इंटरेस्ट, तो 1/5 हो गया हर साल 3 लाख। तो पहले साल में सिर्फ 3 लाख में से 2 लाख आएगा, बाकी 1 लाख वेस्ट हो गया। अगले साल भी 15 लाख का ही 1/5 आएगा, तो वो भी 2 लाख हुआ, 1 लाख वेस्ट। तो जो वेस्ट होता जाएगा वो आप क्लेम आगे नहीं कर पाएंगे।
ओके।
और बच्चों को कुछ पूछना है?
Now, in the case of calculation of this interest, like you have taken completion date before prior, what is 31st March, you have to take that into consideration, is what you said, no, sir? So in the above one, when solving the question, it is like 30th September that the completion is completed. So we have taken 31st March 2021 as the prior, like 31. So in one of the MCQs that you have mentioned, once we have got the value as 0, no, sir, for the interest, you said as it is before that. Can you
Right.
please explain the difference? I did not get that one, sir.
Okay, just a second. Let me tell you in detail. Okay, look what the provisions say, that for the purpose of pre-construction period interest, that's what I was saying. Na? Interest portion is the only technical provision in the income from house property. Everything else is very straight. You can calculate the GAV very easily. You can calculate the municipal tax paid. You can calculate the 30%. The calculation part, exactly, it's only the interest. So you have to be very focused and pay attention to calculate the PPI, etc. Now the concept says that the PPI will start from the date of loan taken. In that question, the loan taken was on 1st April 2000, suppose 22. Fine. The construction of house has completed on 31st March 23. Now the last date has been specified that the end time will be the date 31st March before the completion of construction of property. So if the construction has been completed on exactly 31st March 23, then the preceding 31st March we need to take for the purpose of this calculation. Why we are doing so? Because if the construction is completed in 31st March 23, then 22-23 interest will be claimed as current year interest. So we cannot take this date, because if we'll take this date, then there will be double deduction. One as a pre-construction period 22-23, and one interest is 22-23 as a current year interest, because the provision is very clear. Why we are doing this? Because the provision says the interest for the whole year, the concept says the interest for the whole year in which, do not get confused, I'm just telling you the concept behind this logic. Interest for whole year in which construction complete. The provision says this, that in the year construction will complete, the whole year interest will be treated as current year interest. So because you can see the construction has been complete in 31st March 2023. So this belongs to financial year 22-23. So this year interest will be treated as only current year interest. So the concept says whatever is the date of completion of construction, you have to take the earlier 31st March. So now we will take the 31st March 22. Now you can see 1st April 22 was the loan taken date, but the end date is before the loan taken. So that is practically there will be no interest, because interest can only be start from this date, from this date to any other date. But this date is not preceding, this is the prior to this date. So 31st March 22 is prior to 1st April 22. So we cannot calculate any, you try to calculate it. Chalo, fine. Do one thing, na? Take the difference. There's only 1 day, minus 1 day. So how it's possible that you can pay interest of minus 1 day? That means there is no loan at that day. On 31st March 22, there was no loan exist. So there cannot be interest. Logically, if you are confused in that interest will be charged for 22-23, and we are not taking it as a pre-construction period interest. So this interest is not calculate as per pre-construction interest, that 22-23 interest will be claimed as a current year interest. Suppose the loan was 10 lakh rupees at the rate 10%. So the 1 lakh rupees for previous year 20-23 will be claimed as a current year interest. And there is no pre-construction period we can calculate because the date is earlier than the loan taken date. So there is no pre-construction period interest, but there is current year interest. So whatever you are paying interest in previous year 22-23, that will be allowed as deduction as current year interest, but not as a pre-construction period interest. Okay.
Got it, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Preeti Verma is asking, PPI if not due, paid, then how to solve? If it is not due, then how we can calculate it, Preeti? If PPI is due, then only we can take a deduction. Payment is not required for the purpose of claiming deduction under income from house property. Any more query?
Sir, repeat the last MCQ, sir.
Last MCQ, just hold on. Somebody asking, sir, for agricultural purpose, how many houses are exempted? If there is a building which is used for agricultural purpose and used by the cultivator or farmer, and it is in a rural area, then any kind of any number of houses rent will be exempted as your agricultural income. That is not going to be taxable. So somebody is asking me the MCQ what we have discussed last. What is the issue in that? Let me open it. Just a second. Last MCQ, this one.
Yes, sir.
When a house property is let out throughout the year for a monthly rent of 22,000 and municipal taxes paid for current year is 24,000 and the earlier year paid now is 16,000. So in that case, GAV will be 2,64,000. That is not an issue.
Yes, sir.
But the municipal tax provision says whatever municipal taxes have been paid in previous year. Previous, it means our current year. That means financial year 23-24. So
Yes,
in
sir.
this financial year 23-24, whatever municipal taxes has been paid, whether it belongs to the earlier year or whether it belongs to the future year, prepaid municipal taxes, whole municipal taxes need to be deducted. That's why we deduct full 40,000 municipal taxes, even when 24,000 belongs to our year, earlier year, and 16,000 is paid for earlier year now, and current year is 24,000. So this 40,000 we need to deduct it full out of this GAV.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Any more query? Let me see the chat box.
Sir, I have one more question.
Yes.
Okay. जब हमारा एनुअल इनकम नील है और हम इंटरेस्ट को डिडक्ट कर सकते हैं, पर हमारा एनुअल इनकम है ही नहीं, तो फिर हम डिडक्ट कैसे करें? फिर हमारा माइनस में
बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं आप। अगर हमारा लॉस है, मतलब इंटरेस्ट है मान लो 1,00,000 रुपए का, ठीक है, और हमारी कोई और इनकम नहीं है, तो वो लॉस हमारा इस साल का लॉस रहेगा, हमें कोई टैक्स नहीं देना। गवर्नमेंट कहती है कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, ये 1,00,000 हम आपका इस साल का इनकम नहीं लॉस मानेंगे। अब उस लॉस को अगर अगले साल नेक्स्ट ईयर्स में आपको कोई इनकम जनरेट होती है हाउस प्रॉपर्टी की, मान लीजिए अगले साल आपको 4,00,000 रुपए की हाउस प्रॉपर्टी की इनकम जनरेट हुई, उसमें से आप वो 1,00,000 रुपए घटा सकते हैं, तो अगले साल आपको फिर 3,00,000 पर ही सिर्फ टैक्स देना पड़ेगा। तो ये प्रोविजन है, एक चैप्टर है हमारा सेट ऑफ एंड कैरी फॉरवर्ड ऑफ लॉसेस, उसकी क्लासेस शायद आपने अभी देखी नहीं। तो सेट ऑफ एंड कैरी फॉरवर्ड लॉसेस में ये बताया जाएगा कि अगर किसी भी हेड में, चाहे वो बिजनेस हेड हो उसमें भी लॉस रह सकता है, हाउस प्रॉपर्टी हेड है उसमें भी लॉस हो सकता है, कैपिटल गेन हेड है, उसमें भी लॉस हो सकता है। इन्हीं 3 हेड्स में हमारे जनरली लॉस हो सकते हैं। तो अगर इन हेड्स में कोई भी लॉस हो जाए और हमारे पास इनकम ना बचे इस साल, तो घबराने की कोई बात नहीं। फ्यूचर ईयर्स में एक स्पेसिफिक टाइम लिमिट है, कुछ ईयर्स में 8 ईयर्स तक, कुछ में 4 ईयर्स तक। अगर फ्यूचर में 8 साल या 4 साल एक्सेट्रा, उनमें जब फ्यूचर में इनकम होगी, तो आप इस लॉस को उस इनकम से सेट ऑफ करके अपने टैक्स को कम कर सकते हैं। तो वो सेट ऑफ चैप्टर में डिटेल में आपको पढ़ाया जाएगा। ठीक है।
पर आई हैव अनदर इनकम जैसे एनी VGBP और एनी और टैक्सेबल इनकम इज 4 and 5 लाख, और आई हैव इंटरेस्ट टैक्सेबल इनकम 4 लाख आया है, तो उसमें से हम डिडक्ट कर सकते हैं टैक्सेबल के बाद ये हाउस प्रॉपर्टी वाला जो इंटरेस्ट है?
बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं। 2 लाख रुपए तक का लॉस सिर्फ आप दूसरे हेड से सेट ऑफ कर सकते हैं। PGBP से चाहें, कैपिटल गेन से चाहें, सैलरी से चाहें, 2 लाख रुपए तक का मैक्सिमम सेट ऑफ अलाउड है। अभी ये 2 लाख का सेट ऑफ अलाउड है, कैसे होता है वो सेट ऑफ का एक चैप्टर है, मैंने अभी बताया ना। तो अभी वो सेट ऑफ का चैप्टर की क्लास ऑलरेडी अपलोड हो चुकी होंगी पहले वाली। आप एक बार उसे देख लेंगे तो आपको समझ आ जाएगा कि लॉसेस का ट्रीटमेंट हम कैसे करते हैं। अभी हाउस प्रॉपर्टी ये बताता है कि लॉस आ गया, उस लॉस का हम क्या करते हैं उसका सेपरेट एक चैप्टर सेट ऑफ वाला अगर आप देख लेंगे, तो ये प्रॉब्लम जो लॉसेस का कैसे कहां सेट ऑफ होता है, कब सेट ऑफ होता है, वो प्रॉब्लम आपकी सॉल्व हो जाएगी सारी। अभी एक क्वेश्चन पूछा है अनूप ने, सर इन दैट MTP क्वेश्चन म्युनिसिपल टैक्सेस पेड इन न्यूयॉर्क इज आल्सो कंसीडर्ड, हाउ सर? Look, income tax says if you are a resident and ordinary resident in India, and if you are earning any income outside India, then does not mean that they are only going to include your rental income or your income as the part of taxability in India. They will deduct the expenses also. Even if you are running a business outside India and you are an ordinary resident, so that business income is going to be taxable in India. So does not mean that only revenue will be taxable, only sale will be considered. No, all the expenses of salary, office expenditure, etc., which has been paid outside India, that is also going to be deducted. So if municipal taxes has been paid, it does not mention in the provision that municipal taxes paid in India only deducted. No, if you have a house property even outside India, so the rental income we are going to taxable. Even if you are paying any kind of taxes over there, municipal taxes to the government of foreign country, still they are allowing to deduct those expenditure out of your house property income. It has been also mentioned in the notes, if you uploaded, that there is no difference if the property is in India or outside India. The provision will remain the same. Okay. Area of rent 30% is available for both regime. Yes, in both cases, going deduction will be available for 30%. The balance 70% is going to be taxable. Okay, anyone else?
सर मुझे ये पूछना था कि जैसे आपने कहा कि 31 मार्च और रीपेमेंट डेट भी चली जा रही है
जी,
तो ये अगर रीपेमेंट हम हाफ करें तो उसका कैसे ट्रीटमेंट होगा सर?
अगर आप रीपेमेंट हाफ कर देंगे तो उस केस में जो आधा लोन है, आधा लोन, उस पर जब तक रीपेमेंट किया है तब तक की इंटरेस्ट कैलकुलेट होगी, और बैलेंस वाले पे कैलकुलेट होगी आगे वाली रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट। देखिए कैसे, मैं आपको बताता हूं, जस्ट होल्ड ऑन। अगर पार्ट ऑफ द लोन का रीपेमेंट होता है तो फिर हम पार्ट ऑफ द लोन के ही सारी इंटरेस्ट को कैलकुलेट करेंगे। थोड़ा सा कैलकुलेशन लॉन्ग हो जाती है हमारी इस तरह के क्वेश्चन में। फॉर एग्जांपल ये दिया है कि आपने लोन लिया था 1 अप्रैल सपोज 2021 में 10 लाख रुपए का, और रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट थी 10%। कैलकुलेशन बढ़ेगी, मेथड और प्रोविजन और कंसेप्ट में कोई भी चेंज नहीं होगा, सिर्फ कैलकुलेशन बढ़ेगी। अब इसमें से कहते हैं सपोज 6 लाख रुपीस का रीपेमेंट हो गया, और रीपेमेंट कर देते हैं आप जब चाहें तब करते, चलो हम 1 जुलाई को पेमेंट कर देते हैं थोड़े पैसे का। 1 जुलाई 2023 को पेमेंट हो गया, ठीक। और थोड़ा जल्दी करना पड़ेगा, सॉरी, तभी दोनों का इसे 20 कर देते हैं और इसे 22 कर देते हैं। और जो हाउस का कंस्ट्रक्शन कंप्लीट हुआ था, क्योंकि जब तक कंस्ट्रक्शन कंप्लीट नहीं होगा इनकम फ्रॉम हाउस प्रॉपर्टी के प्रोविजन ही एप्लीकेबल नहीं होंगे। देयर मस्ट बी अ हाउस। कंस्ट्रक्शन हम मान लेते हैं ऑन 1 सितंबर 23 को कंप्लीट हुआ। अब इस वाले केस में जब हम प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन निकालेंगे तो हमें 2 पार्ट में निकालना पड़ेगा। करना कुछ नहीं है, बस कैलकुलेशन 2 बार होगी, बिकॉज जो रीपेमेंट हो गया है 6 लाख रुपए का, उसके बाद जो लोन रह गया उस पर 4 लाख पे निकलेगा प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन और 6 लाख पे निकलेगा नॉर्मल। कैसे? ऑन 1 पहले हम निकालते हैं 10 लाख का प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन पीरियड। स्टार्ट होगा 1 अप्रैल 2020 से, और इसकी जो रीपेमेंट हुई है पहले निकालेंगे हम 6 लाख का। 6 लाख लोन आउट ऑफ 10 लाख हमें 2 पार्ट में सॉल्व करना है। 6 लाख का लोन हमने लिया था, आप ये मान लीजिए जो रीपेमेंट हुआ है वो लोन अलग है और 4 लाख का अलग से एक लोन चल रहा है, तो 2 पार्ट में कैलकुलेशन होगी, नथिंग एल्स। 1 अप्रैल 2020। अब डेट ऑफ एंड लेते हैं हम कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी से पहले वाली 31 मार्च, तो ये आ गई 31 मार्च 2023, ठीक है, इस वाले के हिसाब से कंप्लीशन से पहले वाली 31 मार्च। दूसरा, इस 6 लाख का रीपेमेंट हमने कर दिया है, इसकी हमारे पास रीपेमेंट की डेट आ जाएगी, दैट इज 1 जुलाई 2022, ठीक है। मैंने 22 कर दी थी यहां पर जिससे कि आप पूरा क्वेश्चन समझ पाए। अब नाउ विच एवर इज अर्लियर, अर्लियर क्या हो गई ये वाली, दैट इज 1 जुलाई। अब आप टाइम निकाल लीजिए 1 अप्रैल 2020 से जुलाई 2022 का, ये आ गया 21, 22, अप्रैल, मई, जून, ये आ गया लगभग 2 years and 3 months। तो 6 लाख पर 2 साल 3 महीने का इंटरेस्ट आप कैलकुलेट कर लेंगे। अब तो सिंपल, जितना इंटरेस्ट आया उसका 1/5 आ जाएगा डिडक्शन क्लेम करने के लिए। ये हो गया 6 लाख का। जब हम 4 लाख का जो लोन बचा है उसका कैलकुलेट करेंगे, उसकी भी डेट ऑफ स्टार्टिंग ऑफ लोन यही मानी जाएगी, लेकिन उसका भी रीपेमेंट नहीं माना जाएगा। उसकी सिर्फ एक ही डेट आएगी, कंप्लीशन ऑफ हाउस, दैट इज 31 मार्च 23, क्योंकि इसका रीपेमेंट अभी नहीं हुआ है। तो इसका टेक्निकली जब आप देखेंगे टाइम ड्यूरेशन तो वो 3 year आ जाएगा। इसका इंटरेस्ट निकाल के उसका भी 1/5 कर दीजिए। तो टेक्निकली अगर रीपेमेंट बीच में हो जाता है पीपीआई के केस में, तो उसमें कुछ एक्स्ट्रा कंसेप्ट नहीं आएगा, आपको उसको 2 पार्ट में डिवाइड करके उनका प्री कंस्ट्रक्शन पीरियड निकाल के उसको माइनस करना है। क्लियर? ओके, और कोई क्वेरी किसी की?
सर अगर जैसे रीपेमेंट मतलब हम लोग ने किया नहीं, बट हम लोग को पता है कि हम लोग को 6 साल बाद 7 साल बाद रीपेमेंट करना है, तो हमारे पास रीपेमेंट डेट है तो ना?
नहीं 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 नहीं, वो नहीं लेंगे हम। एक्चुअल रीपेमेंट अगर कर देंगे तभी कंसिडर करेंगे। देखिए, रीपेमेंट डेट तो हमेशा होती है, जब भी आप लोन लेते हैं तो देयर इज अ रीपेमेंट शेड्यूल। वो बताते हैं 5 साल, 7 साल, 10 साल, 15 साल, बट हम यहाँ जो कंसिडर करते हैं वो करते हैं रीपेमेंट डेट। तो जब तक एक्चुअल में लोन का रीपेमेंट नहीं हो जाएगा तब तक आप उस सेकंड वाली डेट को कंसिडर नहीं कर सकते।
और सर जैसे हमें डिडक्शन और एग्जेम्पशंस के सेक्शंस नहीं याद रहे और मतलब प्रोविजन पता है, जैसे कि हम लोग को 1.5 लाख का सेक्शन 80 EEA के अंदर लेना है, तो अगर सेक्शन नहीं याद है पेपर में तो हम लोग क्या करेंगे?
नहीं, तो आप सिर्फ प्रोविजन लिखिए, डिडक्शन 1,50,000 फॉर हाउसिंग लोन। अगर सेक्शन याद नहीं है तो मैंने लास्ट लेक्चर जो रिवीजन का था उसमें भी कहा था गलत मत लिख कर आना, क्योंकि अगर आपने 80 EEA को 80 BBA लिख दिया तो एग्जामिनर को पता चलता है आपको 2 सेक्शन याद नहीं है। एक तो 80 EEA है इसका और 80 BBA इसका नहीं, किसी और प्रोविजन का है। तो प्लीज जब तक सेक्शन को लेकर आप श्योर ना हो तब तक उसे ना मेंशन करें। मार्क्स फिर भी मिलेंगे, डिडक्शन आप अगर नहीं भी लिखते हैं सेक्शन तो भी मार्क्स मिलते हैं। गलत लिखने पे ज्यादा मार्क्स कटने की चांसेस है। सेक्शन याद करने के तरीके, मेरा तो मानना है कि सेक्शन लिखने चाहिए, बिकॉज बहुत सेक्शन इनकम टैक्स में नहीं होते। तो आप कृपया करके सेक्शन याद करें, और मैंने उसका एक ट्रिक भी बताई थी लास्ट रिवीजन क्लास में, उसको आप देखिए। उसको अगर किसी बच्चे ने फॉलो किया है ना पिछले 3-4 दिन में, किसी भी एक बच्चे ने, तो मैं गारंटी दे सकता हूं उससे आसान तरीका सेक्शन याद करने का नहीं है। और सही सेक्शन अगर आपने कोट कर दिया एग्जाम में, तो बहुत अच्छे मार्क्स मिलते हैं, बहुत अच्छा इंप्रेशन पड़ता है। तो प्लीज ट्राई टू रिवाइज इट, लर्न इट। स्टिल अगर नहीं आ रहा है एग्जाम में, कंफ्यूजन है, 50-50 चांसेस भी है, 60-40 भी, तो मत लिख कर आना, आप प्रोविजन लिख दीजिए, दैट विल बी गुड फॉर यू। एनीथिंग एल्स?
सर एक रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस वाले चैप्टर से है सर। जैसे कि हमें पेपर में क्वेश्चन मिलता है, तो जैसे हमने मॉड्यूल में देखा है, तो पूरी पूरी लाइन लिख देते हैं वो आंसर के लिए। तो पूरी लाइन लिखनी जरूरी होती है, या जैसे जो मेन पॉइंट होता है हम वही लिखते हैं आंसर में?
देखो, जो स्टडी में सॉल्यूशन दिए होते हैं वो पूरे दिए होते हैं, बिकॉज आपको उन्हें समझाना है इंस्टीट्यूट को, आपको पूरी डिटेल में। अगर इंस्टीट्यूट सॉल्व कर देगा शॉर्ट में, तो मे बी आपको चीजें क्लियर ना हो। तो इंस्टीट्यूट हर इलस्ट्रेशन की डिटेल में पूरा सॉल्यूशन लिख कर देते हैं सब कुछ। बट ये आपका क्वेश्चन ठीक है कि क्या हमें पूरा लिखना होता है। तो देखो, प्रोविजन तो लिखना ही पड़ेगा। इफ देयर इज अ क्वेश्चन रिगार्डिंग रेजिडेंशियल स्टेटस, तो आपको अगर चेक करना है कि वो रेजिडेंट है या नॉन रेजिडेंट, तो आपको जो पॉइंट है बेसिक कंडीशन के, दैट ही मस्ट बी इन इंडिया फॉर मोर देन इक्वल टू 182 डेज इन प्रीवियस ईयर। और कंडीशन नंबर 2, he must be in India for more than equal to 60 days in the previous year, more than equal to 365 days into 4 preceding previous year। ये इतना तो लिखना ही पड़ेगा। और अगर वो रेजिडेंट है तो भी लिखना पड़ेगा।
सर इसके बारे में नहीं, जैसे कि टोटल इनकम का होता है, उसके अंदर भी वो पूरी पूरी लाइन लिख देते हैं कि लास्ट ईयर को मतलब जैसे पूरा स्टेटमेंट लिखते हैं वो
नहीं, पूरा
टोटल
नहीं
इनकम
लिखना,
में।
आपको रेलेवेंट प्रोविजन लिखना है, रेलेवेंट प्रोविजन जो आपको लगता
मतलब
है
जो
कि हाँ
जो मेन पॉइंट है हम वही लिखते हैं उसके अंदर, टोटल इनकम की कैलकुलेशन के अंदर।
हाँ एग्जैक्टली, आपको पूरा पूरा पैराग्राफ या पूरा एक्सप्लेन करने की, न्यूमेरिकल में पूरा एक्सप्लेन करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं होती है। अगर हाउस प्रॉपर्टी आप सॉल्व कर रहे हैं, तो हाउस प्रॉपर्टी में पीपीआई का इंटरेस्ट निकाल के लिखना है, उसमें पीपीआई का प्रोविजन नहीं लिख के बताना है कि पीपीआई मैंने ऐसे निकाला है, कैलकुलेशन दिखानी है। बट जैसे मैं कह रहा हूँ ना कि पीपीआई में होता है लोन टेकन डेट, फिर लोन रीपेमेंट और लेस, ऐसे नहीं लिखना है आपको। लोन टेकन डायरेक्ट डेट लिखनी है, कंस्ट्रक्शन से पहला वाला 31 मार्च लिखना है, नीचे उसका रीपेमेंट डेट लिखनी है अगर गिवन है, उसकी कैलकुलेशन दिखानी है वर्किंग नोट्स में। प्रोविजन उसके नहीं लिखने हैं आपको कि कैसे हम पीपीआई की डिडक्शन देते हैं, कैसे निकाला जाता है, वो थियोरेटिकल के पार्ट में होगा, वो इस पार्ट में आप नहीं करेंगे।
थैंक यू सर।
Gayatri is asking 31st March immediately prior to the date of completion of construction, or 31st March immediately prior to the date of repayment of loan, whichever is earlier we need to take. No, first A point is correct, Gayatri, but the B point what you are writing is 31st March immediately prior to the date of repayment of loan is not need to be taken. In B point, repayment of loan date we need. Repayment of loan date only, not the 31st March. 31st March preceding, we need to take house completion date preceding 31st March. But for the date of repayment of loan, we just need to take the exact date of repayment of loan. Their 31st March requirement is not in B point. You are wrong. Kindly go through the notes, please see the full lecture what we have uploaded earlier. The full house property lecture, all problem whatever you are asking is discussed over there. All problem except the one question somebody asked, that what sir if the repayment of loan in part. Except that question, everything whatever you are asking already discussed in the previous lectures uploaded in detail, each and everything. Anything else, students? Yes, sir. I guess queries has been taken, so we can close the session.